Hey, as I'm recording this, it's Monday, the 24th of February, 2020. This is the Thoughtful Type podcast. My name is Mishak R. Brencher. I am the polarizing individual. I'm going to talk about, we're going to talk about a very deep, serious, unfortunate situation that occurred just over a week and a half ago. The unfortunate situation in which Caroline Flack took her own life in her flat in London. Obviously, Caroline Flack is best known for presenting ITV2's Love Island, a job she was very, very passionate about. My honest opinion, it's a program it's something I didn't really watch myself. I just don't really have a personal connection with watching a specific program like that. But as a casual observer, the vibe I got from her as an individual, obviously visually, she was a very beautiful, very, very attractive woman. I'm sure there's been times where, I could probably imagine myself having a crush on someone like her. I'm sure I wasn't the only one. A very infectious personality, very charming. She did command your attention when you watched the program, and I think that was it was the forefront of the program. Her having that energy and enthusiasm presenting the program. But getting back onto the unfortunate situation which has happened just over a week and a half ago. What I understand about this I've had to gather a few details so I don't really go off track with anything. What I understand about this situation, the Crown Prosecution Service was pursuing a domestic violence case against her. She was obviously, it was a huge impact in a very negative way. She has been very vulnerable to being bombarded with stories, in the press about her, her career, her love life. In December, last December just gone, she was charged with the assault, and around that time she received, a complete, abundance of negative press. Very, very disproportionate as opposed to positive, press. But the negativity surrounding it was getting to a very, very ridiculous level. And she did bring it up. It wasn't something she was enjoying experiencing. Don't think anyone for that matter would, because it's probably the situation, the incident that she was charged with, it's probably something, she probably wouldn't even associate herself as the person she knew herself being involved in a situation like that. Assaulting a boyfriend. A situation, whatever situation happened between her and her boyfriend, it escalated, and then whatever happened took place. And then eventually she got charged for it. Even though eventually he wanted to drop the charges, the Crown Prosecution Service still pursued the case. Because with their regulations, it's in the best interests of the public to pursue a case like that. But I'll go into that a little bit more, a little bit afterwards. But obviously, she was no stranger to online abuse at all. So she did feel quite vulnerable with things being said in media platforms, obviously specifically social media. 2016, she's having her looks criticised when she got a job presenting X Factor, I believe, in 2015, and just really petty, stupid comments, criticising her for her figure, and very, very ridiculous, uncalled for stuff like that. Even receiving negative comments from people because of obviously she's been associated with various different males in terms of whether she's dated them or been in relationships. I read somewhere she dated Harry Styles when he was part of One Direction. Obviously, when he was a lot younger, there was an age gap between them. I think she received some negative press over that. It's something like that is a very grey area. Some people are totally against the idea of somebody, the age difference between one person to another. Some people aren't comfortable if somebody's much older or much younger than who one person is dating. It's my honest personal opinion. It's when it gets to a certain point in a person's life, there's a certain framework. Like 18, 19, 20, 21 onwards, any of those ages, like if the person inside demonstrates that understanding of what that deep, intimate, emotional connection they have with the other person. Basically, if they are really into each other, I think that's all that really matters. But obviously, something like that varies from different person to different person. But getting back onto this subject, obviously, in recent time, with a lot of focus on the situation involving the domestic charge against her. Obviously, the press, obviously, newspapers, and anyone in general who was getting hold of the story, it presented a lot of negativity in her life, and obviously, it had a very considerable impact, on her reputation. Obviously, she relieved her role presenting Love Island, to focus on getting this situation sorted out involving this domestic violence case against her. Throughout time, I wonder if she actually felt this, but there was high profile people who have been in a position where they've been accused of domestic abuse or any type of harassment against somebody. There's a long list of high profile people in the limelight. They have been demonized, whether they've been charged or not. Maybe the case has been dropped, but when they have been attached to a case like an abuse or a harassment charge, they are demonized by so many people. It does happen. I don't think she liked. She obviously didn't like the idea of what potentially could have escalated going forward, with this thing now being ingrained, on her life. Not only is she a high profile TV presenter, she was viewed as a household name in the UK for presenting Love Island. But the idea now also, obviously with that huge respect, that high profile role, to also having this domestic violence case attached to her, I don't think she really dealt with something like this very well within looking at the history of what's happened with people who have been attached to a domestic abuse or like any type of violence or harassment against them if they've committed it or unfairly been accused of it. It has ruined a lot of people's lives. I hope I've said his name right. Nasser Afzal is the next chief prosecutor for the Crown Prosecution Service. He spoke recently, mentioning we are in a country which takes domestic violence seriously, very serious. So it's pretty much the reason why a case like what happened with Caroline Flack is often in. It's just bombarded, even for someone who knows her, everything about her, to someone who barely even knew her. It's out there, and it'll be on their lips. People will be talking about it because there's a demand. There's often a demand for a case like domestic violence to be taken seriously from people to, like, even name and shame people. And Lord Ken MacDonald, he was a former director of public prosecutions. He stated, often victims of domestic abuse are withdrawn, and they tend to keep quiet for fear of how the situation is gonna develop. They might feel manipulated or threatened by the perpetrator of the situation, who has put them in that harmful environment, who has caused them to feel like, beneath what they are. Some people are just not comfortable sharing a story like that, in case they may fear getting looked at as less of a person, or just a case it's maybe even some ridiculous way protecting the situation, because it could be somebody they could really appreciate that particular person in their life. Or if it's somebody, obviously, if it's somebody they're intimidated by, they don't want to spread a story in case something worse happens to them. So that's why Lord Ken MacDonald suggests that there's a lot of emphasis on bringing a lot of domestic abuse or harassment cases forward, so that the victims are not being ignored. They're not out of touch from getting the right help that they need. Obviously, that's just a general idea. That's not obviously supporting this. That is not supporting this situation. What happened with Caroline Flack? It's just an example of what basically appears to be in the best interests of people who have been victims of domestic violence or harassment. Things like that are not kept quiet, especially if the person is known to do it on multiple occasions. He was built a reputation over a long time. Or this victim has suffered, for such a long period. Eventually, you don't want them to basically, do anything to themselves, eliminate themselves in a bad way, when actually they need support in the matter. They need to get the situation sorted out and get this person done for what they've put them through. Okay. So it seems obviously the Crown Prosecution Service put a lot of pressure on this situation to pursue the case against her. This made her feel very uncomfortable, and it obviously had a very impactful tone on her mindset, her mental health. It's a phrase often just tossed out everywhere nowadays, but it generally was a case like that. She was completely very very humbled by this situation. She does come across somebody who she doesn't associate herself as being, the aggressive type of person, the person that makes someone else belittles somebody. She's very That's the vibe I got, just casually watching her present Love Island or appear on TV programs. That was her in her element. That was her in her best position. That's the life that she thrived on. She loved it. So obviously for this to happen, so the case against her, and then her taking her own life. Like I said, it became too much to deal with, and she ended up taking her own life. But who's really to blame for all of this? Is there anyone really to blame, or is it a case of like, is it? You know what? I sit here and I scratch my head. Obviously, a lot of situations. Alright, forget it. A situation like this, people will point the fingers at tabloids who keep on pressing on about what she's doing in her life, her private life, what she got up to, you know, her love interests, stuff she did in her spare time. Obviously, you know, under heavy scrutiny all the time she was on TV, like presenting the TV shows she featured on. It's a case where, how many, honestly, I've seen a lot throughout time. Somebody is in a bad patch in their life. Like I said, it's something that I don't think. All right. Okay, there's a situation where somebody is basically a very hard-working individual. They do whatever it takes to keep everything in order. You know, they do everything. Not necessarily justifiable. They're not. I'm not referring to someone with just perfectly good morals. Just somebody you know who basically gets stuff done and basically has a real passion for what they do in their life, and they're a good, humble person. They are generally like a good person. Whatever good means, however it's interpreted, they are a good, decent person. Obviously, everybody has their good and bad sides, but ultimately, they are a decent human being. They're decent. But it could even be a few situations, but even just one. It takes one situation where this person could be exposed in a situation that, obviously, it's not a regular occurrence to them, but one situation where something goes wrong, and then the next thing you find, this person is no more are they viewed. You know, they don't have these good virtuous opinions or thoughts about them by others, or if they're famous in the media, the stories projected about them in the media. Like, you know, I've looked at as a role model, like a credit, you know, a household name, a very loving, charming person, you know, just blah 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 blah. Basically, they're looked at in a good light. One bad situation, everything crashes down, everything crumbles. The stigma, how demonized they become. They are looked at like vile, like, you know, like garbage. They're looked at like vile pieces of garbage for being involved in a situation, or that being, you know, they could end up being the perpetrator. They could actually be the one who has done something terrible. As soon as something bad happens, like, everybody is pressing on them. How dare you? You should be ashamed of yourself. How could you? You know, all these things, all the fingers pointing at this person. But like I said, it's not just one or a few. It's not just a small circle. It's not just a big circle. We're talking like lots. We're talking widespread. Particularly if it's obviously a celebrity, we're talking like widespread backlash you're gonna get. Obviously, I know that there's that case. Obviously, I am very diplomatic with the idea. Yeah, there's good and bad. It is a good idea to experience good and bad, so you have some strong backbone. But at the same time, obviously, so that you know where you stand in good times and in bad times. But there is no consideration sometimes. Like if a person really doesn't give a damn, fair enough. You know, like, you know, the evil, you know, the pure evil. This person is capable of evil, pure evil. You know, they don't care. They'd do it again. I abused her. I abused him. Yeah. I took the mick out of him. I made her life a living hell. I made his life a living hell. Like wherever. I made their lives miserable. I don't care. Yeah, if a sort of person like, yeah, I suppose. Not sure if you wanna make a case of it, like, you know, these people like need to be called out for making other people feel worthless, making them feel like so small. Like yeah, fair enough. If it's a person who the majority of the time is a decent person, and one time they mess up, they completely mess, you know, screw a complete situation up. Did they really deserve the same treatment as somebody who quite clearly doesn't give a damn and would quite happily do it time after time after time after time again? Yeah, as alongside somebody who just found himself in a situation which just exposed them in a really bad light, where deep down they know deep down inside themselves, well, I'm not really that type of person. I'm sorry if I've, you know, caused any distress, or if I've caused any, like, you know, any negativity towards this particular person, or if anyone's been really affected. Yeah, sorry, you know, sorry. There's a way. Is there a way to redeem? Is there a way to redeem the situation? Can that person, can somebody not pursue a way to redeem themselves from being in a bad patch, instead of everybody just stamping down on them just because they've done something bad? Obviously, the Crown Prosecution Service makes up its own decision. You know, it made up its own decision regardless of whether Caroline Flack's boyfriend he wanted to pursue the case or not. He dropped the charges, but the Crown Prosecution Service, they decided anyway just to pursue the case against Caroline Flack anyway. Like I said, it goes back to a reason. It's in the best interest of the public. That's the one thing that sticks out. But I know for a fact that, well, obviously it's my opinion, but the vibe I get, like, take for example, if this situation didn't happen with her, where she committed suicide, say if she's still here right now, what opinions would be projected on Caroline Flack? If she went through the trial, like regardless of the verdict, say a long time in the future, she ended up being reintroduced onto TV to present Love Island again. Like, what would the real perception have been towards her if she was still here today? If she was making cases, you know, presenting a case, she felt very vulnerable. It was affecting her. It was affected her, like, her mental well-being. You know, she was psychologically under severe stress. How many people would? I just wonder. Obviously, yeah, there probably would have been a fair amount of people He would have been very, very supportive and very concerned about her position, receiving this negative press about this domestic violence like charge against her. But just in general, it's hard to say because it's a very grey area. But how many people would have really been sympathetic towards her if she was still here today and about to, stand trial for these domestic violence cases like made against her? I wonder. Just in general, like even take away the idea of the domestic violence case. Just in general, the perception of Caroline Flack. What would the perception of her have been? I have a strange suspicion, a part of her image and representation would have been tarnished because of this. Because there's been a long history where people, high profile, obviously, like you would probably mention, people, you take the good and the bad. But there's been a long line of history of people, high profile people who've been in cases. So bad's happened, they've had a lot of negative press against them. They're never looked at the same ever again going forward. Even if they try to go through a metamorphosis, reinventing themselves, like just basically repackaging everything, getting their stuff straight. The perception of them is no longer the same because they'll always have that thing attached to them. But I feel we're all guilty of transgressions in somewhat way. On a high scale or a lower scale, we're all guilty of transgressions. If you know your own self, that you're in a situation where you've done something bad, if you care enough, wouldn't you like to redeem yourself? Not necessarily just to reclaim what you have, just to project exactly. This is exactly who you are when you're in your element. And unfortunately, when there's a bad situation that you get caught up in, unfortunately, you could be in a situation where you're exposed. Either you don't look good or you do something bad. But it's the case of, like, if something bad happens, then it's the case of you don't really. Then you should remove yourself from a situation that doesn't bring out the best in you. If something doesn't bring out the best in you, obviously you've got a choice. You can revisit it to try and help it better next time, or if it ultimately brings out the worst possible side of you, then you don't revisit it. But why should we? One person messes up one person messes up, or there's a few times where we mess up, then we're just scrutinised and demonised in a really vile way. It's disgusting. It's really disgusting. I think some people forget about that. Obviously, it's really bad, the CPS pursuing the domestic violence case against her, really putting pressure on it to make it happen. And obviously the tabloids, printing loads of bad things about her. But at the same time, just in general, it's something that's been breeded in society. It's something that's been breeded in society. We're either innocent or guilty of it. Sometimes we don't realise we're doing it. Some people are not. But it's no blame. It's no like, it's all your fault for why something like this has happened. Nothing like that. It's a case of like, it's been breeded because there is pressure. Unfortunately, there's pressure for something like this to be pursued, a domestic violence case to be pursued. And unfortunately, there is no consideration for whether somebody is strong at heart or vulnerable. There is no consideration. There is no line drawn between who should be pushed more to have a case put against them and who shouldn't. There isn't. There's no discrimination in terms of like who gets pursued. They're gonna pursue it. These Crown Prosecution Service people, it doesn't matter. They're gonna pursue it. And the press, obviously the press, that's how they make a living. They make a living. That's their job, to sell you stories. People will read about them, and then it puts a perspective in your mind about somebody who you read about. It's the talk of the town. It's a topic. It's a current topical subject in many conversations. You go around, people, You might be on a bus talking to people. You might be in a car chit-chatting with your friends or whichever. You might be sat around a dinner table. You might be just be going out casually in general. People protesting against things. You know, it's just for example, there's a situation that's caused that to happen. There's a knock-on effect. There's a chain reaction knock-on effect. But ultimately, unfortunately, it's caused. You know, obviously, she did not deserve to go through this constant beating down of her, just because she screwed up in this situation. No, I'm really sad to think that she is no longer here. I obviously I don't know her personally. That's the truth. But as a casual passerby, yeah, I know enough to like just have an opinion on this, and I feel like it's a sad story. It's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. But it's been breeded by a demand for people to be named and shamed for bad things that they've created, like anyone. And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any discrimination, whether it is a careless, SOB, you know what I mean. Someone who really doesn't give a damn. They're vile. And opposed to somebody who just messed up once or a few times, yet they want to just rebound, get back to where they know they're best, where they best stand, because their livelihood thrives on being in a place that brings out their best side. When they're in their element, that is their best side. That is the side that they want everyone to see, or that they know themselves they're in their most happiest place. Caroline Flack wanted that. She didn't want to be associated with this situation. She had a passion for what she did on television. She probably had she probably merely thought of herself as a contestant on Love Island when she presented it. She had a passion for that show. There's no denying that. Even as a casual observer, you get a vibe. There was no front or anything, like in terms of like, yeah, I'm on TV and I'm gonna look glamorous. I'm gonna put across myself really well. No, she did give off that vibe. She really generally had a passion for that program. Her body of work proved that, and it's sad. It's hard to know what to say. There's a lot of consideration that needs taken on board in terms of how we view people when they do something wrong. How do we actually address it? And that could go anywhere. Right, thank you very much for listening. This is the Thoughtful Type Podcast. My name is Mishak R. Brencher. I'll see you very soon. Take care. And before I go, I'd like to say, Caroline Flack, rest in paradise. I hope you're at peace.